In this video, I'll be discussing a common question that I get asked, which is how long does a mortgage application take? Now, spoiler alert, I don't have a crystal ball, so I won't be able to tell you exactly how long your application is going to take, but I'll aim to give you a good idea in this video. To get a more accurate idea of how long your particular mortgage application will take based on your circumstances, I'd always recommend speaking to your broker in advance. Hi, my name's Sam. I'm a qualified mortgage broker and I aim to help business owners and the self-employed secure their first homes and forever homes. If this is your first time watching, then do consider subscribing to the channel and I'll bring you regular content to help you in your buying or remortgaging journey. So firstly, I want to talk about preparing your application. You'll firstly need to decide whether you're going to use a mortgage broker to help you with your mortgage or you're going to go directly to the bank. If you do choose to proceed with a broker, then they'll help you with all of the paperwork and give you guidance throughout the process. If you're going to look to go direct with a bank, it might take a bit longer and you'll have less guidance throughout the process. We've made a separate video on how to choose a mortgage broker, which I'll link in the description below. I'll also link in there our video on the mortgage process. This part of the process will generally depend on how quickly you can gather the documents that are required and get them over to your mortgage broker. Again, I've made a separate video on what you can expect in terms of documents required, and I'll link that in the description below too. From this point on, I'm going to assume that you are using a mortgage broker. So in that case, the mortgage prep side of things will generally take about 1 to 3 days, depending on the complexity of the case, once your broker has all of the documents that they're going to need. But if you are choosing to go it alone, then this part of the process is likely to take a bit longer. So next point is actually submitting your mortgage application. Again, I'm going to assume that you're going ahead with a mortgage broker here. Now, if you've seen our other videos, then you'll know that I always recommend getting your ducks in a row and prepping for your mortgage in advance. This way, they can carry out more of a formal assessment on the actual documents before making a recommendation to you. And this can involve asking you anticipated questions that we think that lenders might ask, just to speed up that process once the mortgage application is submitted. But assuming that all of your documents are gathered and your broker has carried out their initial checks, then the first stage of submitting a mortgage application is the lender's agreement in principle. At this part of the application, you'd be expected to pass the lender's credit check. We usually look to have these agreement in principles in place before our clients start looking at properties. But it's very easy to get ahead of yourself and sometimes you don't actually realise how quickly you'll go through the process and you just see a property that you love. So that's understandable. Now the good thing is that submitting your agreement in principle in most cases is a fairly swift turnaround. So assuming that you've got all those documents and the broker's carried out their checks, once you've actually submitted the mortgage in principle or agreement in principle, then it's usually an instant decision. It can be delayed by a few days or sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the lender and your particular circumstances, but a good indication is that the agreement in principle should take a day or two. There are some instances where these agreement in principles come back as a decline, and if this does happen to you, I wouldn't lose hope at that part of the process. If one lender does decline you, it doesn't mean that all lenders will. So once the agreement in principle is submitted, then it's a case of submitting the full application, which essentially is just a continuation of that agreement in principle. So you might find that if you've still got all of the documents and no further documents have been requested at that stage, that you can then look to proceed with the full application directly after the agreement in principle. So what are the timescales after you actually apply for your mortgage? Once you've submitted your full mortgage application, it's likely going to take anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks as a rough indication for you to actually get your mortgage offer. This can be a much shorter timescale. We've had mortgage offers on purchase applications come back within 24 hours. And at other times it can take a fair bit longer. So this could be where it's a particularly complex case and there's lots of back and forth with the underwriters. That being said, where a lot of mortgages are very much case by case, I try to avoid as best you can comparing your timescales with other people's timescales, because not one application is the same. It'll often just cause more stress than is needed. If at any point you actually have any concerns about the timescales, then you can always speak to your mortgage broker. That's what they're there for. A good mortgage broker will always actually keep you up to date on where the application is. So the easiest way to explain how a mortgage application works is that it's broken down into two main sections. You've got your mortgage valuation and you've got the underwriting. For the mortgage application, the mortgage lender will instruct a surveyor to visit the property, make sure it's in a suitable condition and that it meets their criteria. In all honesty, this part of the process is out of your hands. It'll be down to the surveyor on how much they feel that the property's worth and whether or not they pick up on any potential defects of the property as well. There's also nothing really that you'd need to do here, so you wouldn't need to worry about getting that booked in because the surveyor will book this directly with the estate agent or the seller. For the underwriting side of the process, once the full application is submitted, the lender will be looking through your mortgage application and any documents that they've requested that's been uploaded by your mortgage broker, and they'll want to make sure that everything matches up and that they're happy with the case overall. They'll also be carrying out their affordability assessment as well. So they'll be looking at your income and your expenditure and making sure that you've got enough left at the end of the month to cover those mortgage payments essentially. There can be all sorts of reasons why there's delays at this part of the mortgage application. So for example, if you're at a low loan to value, and the loan to value being the opposite of the deposit percentage, so a 25% deposit is a 75% loan to value. So if you're at low loan to value, then this may cause the application to go through a little bit quicker. Essentially, you'll be seen as a lower risk client, and they may instruct what's called an automated valuation for this. So that's where they won't physically send a surveyor to the property. They'll use data that they hold online for the property. This will of course speed up the application process as you're not waiting for that valuation to be carried out. A factor that can delay the process is actually having the valuation booked in. So this is going to depend on the actual backlog of the surveyor that's been instructed. And a third example might just be the actual lender's backlog. So different lenders are going to have different timescales. Some will be quicker than others at different times. It's all going to depend on how many applications they're actually getting. Again, at the start of the process, before you actually submit the application, your mortgage broker might be able to give you rough guidance on what those timescales are with the particular lender. One thing that's important to note as well is that if there are any issues with the application, so if the lender isn't happy with any part of the application, or if there's complications with the valuation, for example, if there's a down valuation or a particular defect that's been noted on the property, then you can find that your mortgage application is rejected. Again, if this is the case, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be able to proceed with a different lender and complete on your purchase absolutely fine. But at the same time, if this does happen and you do need to proceed with a different lender, then this is going to add to your timescales. So to summarise then, assuming that you've got your documents prepared and you've got your offer accepted on a property, then it's going to take anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks to get your mortgage offer. Now, we'd always hope that your particular case would be at the quicker end of this, but it's always going to be a case-by-case basis. A good broker will always tell you estimated timescales right at the beginning, and then if there are any hiccups during the process, they'll always keep you updated on those timescales as well. So let's hear from you. Are you looking to get a mortgage? Do let me know in the comments below. As always, please don't hesitate to leave us a comment if you have any questions whatsoever, or you can always call and get in touch with our team and we'd be happy to help. Before I let you go, I must tell you that as a mortgage is secured against your home, it may be repossessed if you don't keep up the mortgage repayments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.